So 2025 in the UFC is almost in the books, but you know the fight for the top never, ever stops. As we start looking ahead to 2026, the biggest question on every fan's mind is, who's next? Who's in line for a title shot? Well, today we're going to break it all down, division by division, to map out the road to UFC Gold, all based on some great analysis from Clutch Points. And listen, that is not an exaggeration. The UFC roster right now is absolutely stacked, probably deeper than it's ever been. We're talking about undefeated monsters, huge controversial stars, and entire divisions that are just log-jammed with talent, all of them clawing for a shot at glory. It is setting the stage for what could be one of the most incredible years of championship fights we have ever seen. So here's how we're going to tackle this. We're going to start with the lightest divisions, work our way all the way up through the heavyweights, and of course, cover the massive fights that are brewing in the women's divisions. Let's jump right in. All right, first up, the fastest fighters in the game. These divisions are all about blinding speed, insane technique, and right now, some really fascinating championship pictures. So at flyweight, you've got the second youngest champ in UFC history, Joshua Vaughn. But his title win came after Alexander Pantoja had a freak shoulder injury just 26 seconds into their fight. Pantoja was a dominant champ, and he absolutely deserves an immediate rematch. But if he's not ready to go, the UFC has options. You've got the phenom Tatsuro Taira, who's sitting at 18-1, and of course, Brandon Royval. His last fight with Vaughn was an instant classic. They set a record for significant strikes. A rematch there? Guaranteed fireworks. Moving over to bantamweight, things get even more complicated. Petrion's victory over Merab Dvalishvili was a shock, and you better believe Merab has earned an immediate trilogy fight to settle that score once and for all. Then you have the undefeated Umar Nurmagomedov, who not only carries that legendary family name, but has a suffocating grappling style that's a nightmare for anyone. And then there's the wild card, Sean O'Malley. He's got a controversial win over Jan already, he's a massive star, and you know the UFC would love to book that big money rematch. But this is the million-dollar question for Sugar Sean, right? He'd have to get through Song Yadong first, because even for a star as big as O'Malley, giving a title shot to a guy on a 3-fight losing streak, well, that would be almost impossible to justify. It's that classic MMA dilemma, star power versus pure merit. Okay, let's move on up to two of the deepest, most talent-rich divisions in the entire sport. We're talking about featherweight and lightweight. These are absolute shark tanks. At featherweight, there is a serious logjam of undefeated talent just building up. The great Alexander Volkanovski is champ again, but he's scheduled for a rematch with Diego Lopez, a guy he just beat pretty decisively. Meanwhile, you have Movsar Evloev, who's a perfect 19-0, and Lerone Murphy at 17-1, just waiting. Yeah, their grappling-heavy styles have gotten them unfairly labeled as boring by some, but you simply cannot deny their records. These guys deserve their shot. And hey, if you think featherweight is complicated, welcome to lightweight. The champ, Ilia Topuria, is stepping away for a bit, which means we're getting an interim title. Now, the clear #1 contender, Arman Sarakin, seems to be in Dana White's doghouse after a post-fight incident, so his shot is suddenly in jeopardy. So who bets the nod? Looks like the fast-tracked Paddy Pimblett, probably because of his marketability and his beef with Topuria. And we can't forget about the BMF champ, Max Holloway, who just delivered one of the greatest knockouts in UFC history. It is nothing short of organized chaos at 155 pounds. All right, now we're moving up to the power divisions. These are the weight classes where one single shot can change everything. Let's take a look at the murderer's row of challengers lining up at welterweight and middleweight. At 170 pounds, the pound-for-pound king himself, Islam Makhachev, has moved up and taken over what is arguably the single most stacked division in the entire UFC. He has got a legitimate line of killers just waiting for their chance to take that belt. And the top of this division is on an absolute collision course. You've got Shavkat Rakhmonov, 19-0 with 18 finishes. The guy's a human finishing machine. Before his injury, everyone thought he was the most deserving challenger in the entire sport. But while he was out, Michael Morales, who's 18-0 himself, just went out and dominated a premier grappler. So you have to ask, who gets the first crack at the king? It's a fascinating dilemma. Now at middleweight, it is all about one thing, solving the Khamzat Chimaev puzzle. Nasruddin Imavov has definitely earned his shot, and that presents a classic striker versus wrestler matchup. Then you have Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, a relentless takedown artist in his own right, which would be an incredible stylistic clash against Chimaev's wrestling. And you can't count out the former champ, Dricus du Plessis. Yeah, he got dominated the first time, but if he can shore up that takedown defense,
a rematch could be a whole different story.
All right, on to the big boys, the divisions where legacies are made, and every single fight can end in the blink of an eye. Welcome to the Kings of Carnage. Alex Potan Pereira reigns supreme at light heavyweight. And while, yeah, rematches with Magomed Ankalaev and Jiri Prochazka are possibilities, the real momentum belongs to one man, Carlos Ulberg. This guy is on a crazy 9-fight win streak and just got a massive victory over a former title challenger in Dominic Reyes. He's the fresh blood, the exciting new contender this division needs at the very top. The heavyweight division right now is completely defined by unfinished business. The last title fight between the champ, Tom Aspinall, and Cyril Gane, it ended way too early because of an accidental eye poke. It was such an anticlimactic ending to a fight that Gane was actually winning, and it absolutely demands that they run it back. So while that Aspinall-Gane rematch seems pretty much inevitable, the rest of the division isn't just sitting around. Alexander Volkov is still out there campaigning for a title shot after a controversial decision loss that he feels was a flat-out robbery. And then there's the rising star, Waldo Cortez Acuesta. If this guy can score another highlight reel knockout, especially against a legend like Derek Lewis, he could leapfrog everybody right to the front of the line. Finally, let's turn our attention to the women's divisions, which are just packed with compelling storylines. We're talking returning legends, high-stakes title eliminators, and a potential super fight for the ages. Okay, the women's divisions are just poised for a massive year. At strawweight, the big question is, will the former dominant champion Zhang Weili return to challenge the new queen Mackenzie Dern? Over at flyweight, we've got a clear-cut title eliminator between Natalia Silva and former champ Rose Namajunas that will decide who gets the next crack at the legend Valentina Shevchenko. And then, at bantamweight, we have a true super fight on our hands. Kayla Harrison, the new dominant force, against the returning GOAT Amanda Nunes. It simply does not get any bigger than that. So, as we look at this incredible landscape of talent stretched across every single division, you have to wonder, which one of these potential showdowns is going to be the fight, the one that defines the entire year? From undefeated phenoms to bitter trilogy matches and legendary super fights, the possibilities are just endless.